Hello, and welcome to another episode of the After School Club with Max Pembleton. Today we are joined by Daniella Genas, founder of Be the Boss. She's on a mission to transform not just businesses, but the very mindsets of entrepreneurs across a wide range of industries. She has a proven record of driving client growth, with many seeing six-figure gains. Daniella's got a powerful story, real-world insights, and the kind of energy that'll leave you feeling seriously motivated. So we hope you enjoy listening. Here we go with Daniella Genas.
Hi, Daniella. How are we doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you making the journey today. I just want to start by, first of all, the name of your business is fantastic.
Thanks.
Be the Boss. Just tell us, how did you come up with that name and why is it called Be the Boss?
So the original name was actually She's the Boss. And that came about because prior to starting this business, I had another business and people, and one person in particular, used to always call me World Boss.
Right.
So when my friend Nathan, he would introduce me to people and they'd say, who is this? And then he'd say, She's the Boss.
Great name.
And it kind of stuck. And then I created a video series on YouTube called She's the Boss. And I was like, well, actually, why not I just call the business that? But then what started to happen is people would assume like She's the Boss meant she as in the people I'm working with. And there was an assumption that I only worked with women, which is not actually the case. I work with both genders.
Yep.
So I thought actually, if it's causing confusion, it's probably not
Yep.
wise to keep it. I don't want to repel male clients.
Yep.
So then I've changed it to Be the Boss, which for me has kind of a similar sentiment, but it's more outward focused. So She's the Boss was me, like She's the Boss as in I'm the boss.
Mhm.
Whereas Be the Boss is like you can be the boss.
Yep.
So I still have the She's the Boss brand for my personal brand. So when I do speaking and that kind of thing.
Yep.
But Be the Boss is the business name because the idea is we help people to truly walk into their boss mode to
Amazing.
be the boss.
Amazing. So just on that point then, in terms of what you actually do as a business, you help people become bosses or existing bosses, you help them elevate as existing bosses as well, or both.
So basically, the idea is anyone that runs a business is already a boss, right?
Mhm.
But do they truly operate in boss mode? Do they feel like a boss? So from a confidence perspective, are they running their business efficiently like a boss? So do they have the right systems, processes? Are they being leaders within their business? But also, are they being strategic as a boss? So are they going for big goals? Do they have big vision? So I work with people that are already in business, so founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, but it's really about getting them to step into their CEO era, whether that is, as I said, through leadership, strategy,
Yeah.
systems and automation, confidence.
Great. And we're going to dive into a lot more about the business just a little bit later on in the conversation. What I want to do is rewind at first. And how did you first know that actually you're in boss mode? And did that start at school? What was it like at school? Just tell us a little bit about your school experience and when you first realized, actually, I'm in boss mode.
So it's interesting. I was thinking about this on the way there. I really kind of was very shy, very quiet.
I would never think that.
Well, this is the thing, nobody ever does. Really like very insular. I was the child that would be in the corner, you wouldn't notice that they were there.
Yeah.
But I was also very busy. So my granddad used to call me Busy Bee because I was always doing something, whether that be calligraphy, learning. There used to be this thing that like a toy called Connects.
Right.
You could have as a child, and it was like loads of sticks and you put them together and you could create buildings out of it and stuff that moved. And I was always doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even as a very small, like 5, 6, 7-year-old. And then as I got a little bit older, again, as shy and retiring as I was, I still found opportunities to try and make money. So I remember braiding hair in class, asking my friends if they want the hair braiding. If you give me whatever it was at the time, probably £3,
Yeah.
I'll braid your hair. I remember getting kicked out of my maths class for doing that. I remember offering to wash cars in my local area.
Yeah.
I remember babysitting my mum's friends. So I was always kind of hustling.
Yeah.
So I guess at that time it wouldn't have necessarily occurred to me as boss mode or even entrepreneurship, but looking at it retrospectively,
Yeah.
I definitely showed very early signs of being entrepreneurial. And in fact, a story that occurred to me on the way here, one of the things that I did, which is not necessarily a good thing, but I remember crying. There was something going on at school and I brought, we used to have bookmarks.
Yeah.
And the bookmarks, I don't know, let's say they were 10p.
Yeah.
I paid the 10p but took up like 10
Yeah.
and then tried to sell the rest
Yeah.
like 5p to the rest of my friends to make a profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the kind of boss in me was clearly always there,
Yeah.
but to really say what was boss mode or when did I step into boss mode, that happened much later, because
Okay.
true boss mode is knowing and having the confidence to walk out. And I don't think I got that until I started my first business,
Yeah.
which was after uni. But school, really, I was always
Yeah.
trying to be in something.
I think with a lot of entrepreneurs, you don't actually realize it at the time, but when you look back, it all kind of adds up.
Mhm.
Oh, I was doing that and I was trying to make money with that, even the small things.
Yeah.
And then they eventually lead to the bigger things within business.
Mhm.
What sort of subjects were you into? So obviously your whole life and career now is around business. Was there a huge business focus? Was it maths and financials? What did you enjoy
Absolutely
at
not.
school?
I hated maths. I really enjoyed more of the creative stuff. So I loved performing arts. I loved music. I really randomly also loved history. History was actually my favorite subject.
Right, okay.
But yeah, I wasn't really into. I didn't enjoy the really academic subjects, so the maths, the Englishes. Didn't mind science particularly. I enjoyed chemistry. I wasn't interested in the other sciences.
Yeah.
Quite liked IT actually.
Mhm.
But interestingly, when I think of it, you get to choose your options, and I think there was an option for IT and an option for business, but you could only choose one or the other. And I chose IT.
Right,
I
okay.
didn't choose business.
Interesting.
Yeah. Again, doing this has made me start to really reflect on certain things. But my dad was a computer programmer,
Right, okay.
software developer. So he had
Yeah.
tried to get me into software development from a very young age. I wasn't interested. Like, I
Right.
remember him bringing out this massive Java book and a C++, literally like this big when I was like 9.
Yeah.
Read that. Now I think had I done it and learned it, I probably would have been a billionaire by now, but
Yeah.
that's an aside. So I feel like I leaned more towards IT and I liked computers. So
Yeah.
I remember designing a website with Tweety Bird when I was like 11.
Yeah.
And the school that I went to was a technology college. So
Right,
we
okay.
had, I'm not that old, but I kind of remember when computers first was a
Yeah.
thing, and our school more so than many of the other schools, there was lots of computers.
Yeah.
So I did spend a lot of time on computers and
Yeah.
also in
Isn't it
chat.
crazy? It makes you feel old now talking about
Yeah.
that, because it was like that. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
not everyone had computer, and I always remember the dialogue, ding, jinga, jinga, jing, when you used to log on to the internet.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny because I saw a video the other day on the internet, and you know when a text message comes through
Yeah.
on the computer, and you used to hear that tick, 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 tick,
Yeah.
and then the text would come through, but you knew a text was coming.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. People
The
can't
TV
even
as
remember
well.
anymore. But
Yeah.
anyway. So after school, then was there a point where you thought, right, in my next part of education, I want to have a focus on business? So when did the business focus come?
Very, very late. So actually, I wanted to be a singer.
Okay.
So,
I'm not going to ask you for a song today.
please don't, because I'm not going to. I wanted to be a singer and a TV presenter. Very
Yeah.
two random things that don't have any correlation.
Yeah.
So when I went to college, I studied media and communications.
Right.
And the idea was if I do media, then it's going to help me with
Yeah.
TV presenting. Realized probably at college I'm not going to be a singer. I went for an audition for a performance at the Playhouse in Nottingham
Right.
with my friend and my 2 cousins. All 3 of them got in and I didn't. So I
Right.
was like, okay, clearly it's not for
Yeah.
me.
Knocked you back.
Yes, I'm not going to do that. But I really did want to do the media stuff. And my parents wanted me to go to university after college, and I was like, no, I'm going to performing arts school.
Hmm.
And was really excited about that, but then realized actually you're not going to performing arts school because you're not that great of a singer.
Yeah.
So you need to find something else. So then I really wanted to hone in and focus on this TV presenting, working in the media. So then I went to university and studied media and communications
Right. Okay.
with a particular specialism initially in television, but then I switched over to radio because I realized I really enjoyed doing radio as well.
Yeah.
So at that point, again, at university, I was doing business focused things. So I started the African Caribbean Society at my university because they didn't have one. And whilst so we call them ACSs, the ACSs at the other universities were just doing parties and different things. I was going for big sponsors and organizing events.
Yeah.
So one of our first sponsors for our events, random again, Alizé, which is an alcoholic drink.
Yeah.
Can't really see it as much now.
No, you don't. We used to hear a lot about
Yeah,
it.
Alizé was a big deal, and I got Alizé to send us like 100 bottles of Alizé to one of our events.
Yeah.
I got West Bromwich Building Society to give us like £1,000,
Yeah.
and this was in what, like 2007?
Yeah.
No, not 2007, 2005.
Right. Okay.
So at that time, that was a huge amount of money. HMV was our sponsor. So I was writing sponsorship proposals. I was pitching to sponsors. Again, all skills that have really stood me in good stead in business, but at the time I didn't necessarily see it as business.
Yep.
So I remember one time being called into the head of society's office because they would say, "What's going on here? Because you've got more money than all of the other societies kind of combined."
Yeah.
Because I'm good at what I do. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So
And you enjoyed it. You just
I loved
naturally
it,
enjoyed
yeah.
doing that. Yeah.
They used to call me Flyer Girl because I was always showing up with a flyer. Come to my events.
Yeah.
We've got this, and that kind of thing. So I finished university and then was depressed.
Yeah.
So like I went into a job, didn't enjoy that job, went into another job, didn't enjoy it. And it was this kind of idea that if you want to work in the media, you have to go to London. And I had moved from Nottingham to Birmingham to go to university, and that was quite a big leap because Nottingham's much smaller. But then the idea of moving to London, which I really didn't like London,
Yeah.
and making tea for people, because it was, if you wanted to
where you
get
had
into
to
the
start.
media, you have to start making tea. So I guess it was a bit of an ego. And maybe had I just made the teas and coffees, I might have been able to break through, but I
Yeah.
just wasn't willing to do that.
Yeah.
So I stayed and just jumped from job to job to job to job to job, and then heard about a business startup program
Right.
and said, actually, let me just do that then, because
Yeah.
I don't like working for people. And that's what I realized. I don't like
Yeah.
having a boss.
You wanted to work on your own terms and be the boss.
Literally that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why are people telling me what to do? And to be fair, this was a challenge that I had in school.
Yeah.
I always had an issue with authority,
Yeah.
which is not obviously a good thing. But again, looking retrospectively, I can kind of see that it was because I had
Yeah.
this independent nature.
Yeah.
So I recognized once I'd started working that I don't like people telling me what to do. I don't like being on other people's schedule.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm working so hard to put money in other people's pocket and I'm not getting paid what I want to get paid. So as soon as I heard about this program, I said, let's start a business.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. So whilst I was running that ACS at the university, one of our signature events was something called Talent.
Right.
And it was essentially, it was X Factor before there was X Factor for students. And we traveled, we went on tour. Like we had auditions in Manchester, Leeds, Nottingham, Derby, Leicester, Wolverhampton, Coventry. And then we'd have an annual show in Birmingham.
Right.
And again, with the sponsors, we'd get them to sponsor prizes and different things. So once I started the business startup program, it was like, actually, let me turn this concept into a business.
Yeah.
Let's create a performing arts academy for young people from marginalized backgrounds. So that was actually the initial idea.
Okay.
But then whilst on the program, I recognized actually that's probably not going to work. And we decided to become because a few of us at the time, 4 of us in total, a social enterprise that specialized in celebration events for corporates, use the funds from those events to then provide training for young people from marginalized backgrounds in performing arts, media, and business.
Amazing.
And that's what the first business did.
Amazing. And that's how it came about. Interesting. And one question I always like to ask, in relation to education, it's so interesting hearing people's journeys and, what flicked the switch to get them to where they are. Do you think that there are things that schools could put in place, maybe with a more business focused, a more of a business focus to help young people spark those ideas earlier? And my question is, if you could change something within schools and education with the curriculum, what would you change? What would you teach? And what would you introduce?
I'd change everything. I don't necessarily think the current curriculum is fit for purpose. I have a 9-year-old that's at school, and it's weird that she's learning basically all the same things that I learned 30 odd years ago.
Yeah, and the world's changed
And the
so
world
much.
completely changed. Like, I feel that they should be doing coding for a start, even though I didn't want to do it at that age. But we're in the digital age, we're in the technology age. AI is a huge thing. Why are the kids not being taught those things? Business, again, there's a program, I don't know if it's national, but I know they run it in Birmingham, where they do enterprise training for kids, and they do like competitions. So they come up with a business idea, and then they have to go and like sell their products or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they do like a massive event at the end of the program where the kids pitch, so they're taught how to pitch, they've got to come up with a product, they have to do marketing. That is what I feel like every school should have. Because not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur, not everyone's going to be a business owner, but actually even the skills that you would acquire going through a process such as that from working in work.
Yeah.
So pitching skills, presenting yourself,
Yeah.
that works in a corporate environment. Because when you have to have an interview, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Understanding finance, you need that for life. In schools, I think, again, something that is missing and that I definitely would want to teach myself. Finance, how to manage a household budget. Something I remember when I moved out of home and went to university. But in fact, after university, when I moved into my first proper rented house, and then we had to pay for water.
Yeah.
So it's like, water bill? I
Yeah.
thought the water just came out the tap.
Yeah.
Nobody ever told me that you had to pay water bills.
Yeah.
Stuff like investments, things around tax, things around credit. Why are they not taught? These are things that are way more useful than Pythagoras theorem.
And you're going to use it.
Yeah, I've never used Pythagoras theorem.
Yeah.
Like, what's the benefit of that? Like, critical thinking is really important, and I think there needs to be learning and lessons around critical thinking, but also how to move through the world.
Yeah.
So business, finance, and all of those kind of key things. But I think critical thinking is also a key one. And I think at the moment schools are built that kids learn how to follow instructions, not how to come up with concepts, not how to analyze things critically,
Yeah.
not how to generate ideas. And I think that's something that's really missing, because actually that means everything else can work.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, thank you for that. And one other question that I always love to ask is any inspirations or motivations. Was there anyone throughout school, university, even at home that really inspired you, that you looked up to as a role model and made you think a little bit differently?
So a few people, I guess. So at school there was a gentleman called Dennis Davis who ran a program for us called, I think it was called Ijamu. And it was really about confidence in who you are and where you come from. And that really played a very pivotal part in understanding my ancestry, my history, and understanding that I came from a background of people that had really overcome great odds. And that was really quite inspirational for me. My friend's dad, I speak about a lot, Lyndon Gibson, he employed me actually when I was 16. Yeah, I had my first, well, it wasn't my first job. I did work in McDonald's for a bit before, but
Yeah.
we won't talk about that one. He employed me at his mentoring company,
Right.
Build Mentoring, and I would go into schools, and he got a contract with Nottingham City Council to organise an event, and I had shown an interest and I guess an aptitude in organising things, so he let me run the whole event, and we organised a family fun day at the Arboretum Park that was packed.
Yeah.
There was over 1,000 people there.
Well,
And I had done the marketing. I've still got the flyer I designed on word art.
yeah.
It's awful, but at the time it worked.
Yeah.
So I designed the flyers. I booked the speakers. I booked stall holders. I pretty much organized everything, and people were so shocked because I was like 16 at the time.
Yeah.
So again, another example of showing the direction I was kind of going in. But he really empowered me to recognize and understand that it doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter. If you can do something, you can do something.
Yeah.
And I remember getting paid, like I was being paid £6.67 an hour. And at that time, most of my friends that had jobs were being paid like £4 an hour, £3 in some cases.
Yeah.
So I already was walking out like I'm the boss, like you guys have got the rubbish jobs. So he really inspired me to know that I don't have to accept what everybody else is doing. Actually, I can go above and beyond that.
Yeah.
And something else that he did that actually I would say has really changed the trajectory of my life is he took me to events, conferences, youth conferences, and he would tell the people that I was going to do a talk about the company. He wouldn't tell me.
Right.
Because as I said,
drop it on you.
Yeah, as I said, I was painfully shy. He wouldn't even drop it on me. The host would. And so we've got Daniella Genas from Build Mentor Agency is going to come up and talk about the work that they do.
Yeah.
I was painfully shy.
Yeah.
So the first time it happened, as shy as I was, I didn't like to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
So the first time he did it, I got up and I was nervous and I fumbled my words. But the second time I prepared something in advance
Just in case. Yeah.
The third time he did it, I was able to speak. And actually, it really has helped me with my speaking because had that not happened, I don't think I ever would have been able to speak confidently in public.
Hmm.
And it really helped build my confidence and recognize actually you have a voice and you can speak.
Yeah, you just needed that push
Yeah,
to get you in that
definitely.
position.
And there's been other developments after that that has obviously helped me become a better speaker, but that was the catalyst. So
Yeah.
he has been such a pivotal part of the trajectory of my life.
Mhm.
So thank you, Lyndon. And then just general inspiration. Oprah was, it's very cliche, but Oprah was always a big inspiration for me. The fact that she came from nothing and
Yeah.
kind of became something quite phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at home, both of my parents instilled in me from a very young age, don't work for anybody else. My dad in particular
Yeah.
used to really drive that home. Don't
Yeah.
work for the man. Like,
Yeah.
was something constantly
Yeah.
drilled into my head. So as much as I don't necessarily think that initially I understood or knew that I was going to work for myself,
Yeah.
I think latterly, obviously, the message made sense in my head, and that's
Yeah.
what I did.
And I think a lot of people that go on to work for themselves, I don't know if it's always necessarily about the money straight away. I think a lot of it is about having time and, making decisions for yourself. And actually, if you need a day off to go and watch your child in a school play, you can do that. And I don't need to ask permission. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
me, money wasn't ever the thing. My first business was a social enterprise, so that's
Mm.
not about money really. It's about social impact.
Mm.
It was really I wanted to make a difference, and I don't want people telling me what to do.
Mm.
And actually, if I don't want to start working till 10 a.m., then that's what I want to do. I will work from 10 and I'll
Yeah.
finish whenever I feel like it.
Yeah.
So it was really about freedom, time freedom, and
Yeah.
decision freedom for me more
Yeah.
so than anything else.
Okay, and then fast forward now then to obviously running Be the Boss. First of all, what I want to know is how did you go from the social enterprise business to then having a company, Be the Boss, where actually you help bosses and business owners run their business? How did you get to that position?
So the first business really set the trajectory for this business. So there was lots of things that went fantastically. So we
Mm.
grew quite quickly. We became a 6-figure turnover business. I had a team of about 15 members of staff, had my own offices, was winning awards. I was featured in a BBC Women's Hour series for a year.
Yeah.
I was on the TV. I was on Midlands Today. Like I was big boss mode at that point, which
Yeah.
is why I got the name World Boss.
Yeah.
Because of that, because I was doing bits at the
Mhm.
time. But then behind the scenes, the infrastructure of the business just was not solid at all. We were very heavily reliant on grants and on key clients. So once grants started to get taken away, and
Yeah.
key clients said, actually, we don't want to proceed this year, then the business began to crumble. I didn't really ever get to grips with the idea of having a sales system. I didn't ever get to grips with delegating properly. So I had the staff.
Mhm.
So I hired 15 people over the duration, but I think the most we had at one time was 8 in the office.
Right.
But they were there, but they weren't really taking the pressure off me.
Mm.
So I was still the bottleneck. They still had to come to me and ask me how to do everything. And it was quite stressful, actually. So a lot of the time I would work at home
Yeah.
instead of going into the office.
Did you ever have anyone to lean on to advise you on? Actually, Daniela, why don't you do it like this?
Not really, no. And that was the challenge. I would look for people that had been in business and could advise me. And I didn't really ever find anyone that could really relate.
Mm.
And whilst I was part of that Women's Hour show, they assigned me a mentor, Geeta Patel, and she's a very successful lady, lives in London. And I remember she asked me a really pivotal question. If you can't help yourself, how can you help other people?
Mm.
And she asked me, do you own your own home? And I said, no. And she was like, why? That's 'cause I don't have the money to. So then why are you in business?
Yeah.
You're helping all of these young people, but you've not even purchased a house. And it really slapped me in the face. Oh my gosh, she's correct. And got behind the scenes. I was going through a lot of stress. I had one of the ladies that I'd hired sued me. The lady that I hired after that, she stole my idea and went and got 100K funding for it. It was very stressful. I was tired. My hair was falling out. I lost a lot of weight, wasn't sleeping. It
Yeah.
was really tough. And then obviously I made the decision to close the business. Somebody offered to buy it. And then I wanted to really understand what had gone wrong.
Mm.
Like I know what I did right, but actually what are those key success factors and are they replicable?
Mhm.
And where did I go wrong and what should I have done? And I then I signed up for I was given a scholarship actually to do my MBA. And it was through the MBA that I really looked at what are the key success factors of a sustainable business that can grow. So sustainable. What are the key success factors of a business that can grow sustainably?
Yeah.
Initially, the focus was on female-led businesses. The principles. And from that, I developed the VISA framework, which stands for Vision, Innovation, Strategy, Systemization, and Accountability, and acknowledge and recognize I had been missing a vision, hadn't been innovative as much as I should have been. I kind of was doing the same thing over and over again and looking for a different result. I didn't really have the strategies to bring the vision to fruition because I didn't have a vision, and I didn't have a sales strategy, didn't really have a marketing strategy.
Yeah.
There were no systems internally, so the business was reliant on me, and I had no accountability. I was just operating by myself. So it was through developing that framework, doing my MBA, started working with business owners. So because of the success or the seeming success of the first business,
Yeah.
I'd had a lot of creative businesses and social enterprise businesses asking me to kind of mentor and coach them. So once I was doing my MBA, people continued coming. And then I started testing the framework. I then started working with a government body called Innovate UK Edge.
Right.
And started testing the framework with non-creative and non-social businesses. Realized actually this works.
Yeah.
And then
And you can use this across every business.
Yeah, every sector, all different stages of business also.
Yeah.
And I launched the business part-time. So I was doing part-time business and working as a senior growth advisor for Innovate part-time.
Okay.
And then we got to a bit of a tipping point where I realized actually I don't want to do this over here anymore.
Yeah.
And the business is doing well enough, I can do it full time. And that's
Yeah.
what I've been doing for the last few years.
Amazing. And do you do it remotely? You do it from home, or
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
So I was definitely traumatized by having staff.
Yeah.
I hated having staff. So I kind of vowed with this business, I was going to be as lean as possible.
Yeah.
So I work from home, although I feel like at this moment I might look for external because I keep washing the dishes,
Yeah.
turning on the dishwasher, doing the laundry. So I might be looking for some space this year. But yeah, working from home. I have at the moment I have one person working with me. I did have two before, but I've gone even leaner. It's just one person now.
Yeah.
And I deliver much all of my interventions online, and started that from before COVID happened. So
Yeah.
when COVID happened, everyone was trying to get to grips with how to use Zoom. I'd been using it for
You were already set up.
quite some time before that.
Yeah.
So I do some in-person stuff. And there's obviously been a general development growth of the business in terms of even what we do. And obviously from the innovation perspective, I'm always looking at new ideas and new offers. So we've also developed something called the Founders Network and the Founders Dinners, which is a community for business owners who are seeking a safe space, who are seeking opportunities to build relationships with new business owners.
So a regular networking group.
Yeah. Which we have dinners. We started with dinners in Birmingham. We're now branching out. We've got our first dinner in London in March. We are hoping actually by the beginning of next year to come to Nottingham.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to pick.
I do need to come, don't I?
Yeah, you actually
do need to come.
We're trying to pick between Nottingham and Manchester. So we can definitely do Nottingham and Manchester, but we don't know which order to do it in.
Okay.
But maybe Nottingham would be. Got more clients in Nottingham than Manchester, so I don't know. But yeah, so there's been development, and I love it.
Yeah.
I feel like this is what I was called to do. And I think the first business really just laid the groundworks and laid the foundations for me to understand how to do this. Because now when I speak to business owners and they're saying, oh my gosh, my staff has done this, I can relate. And that was the missing piece for me. Everyone that I had spoken to try and get support from in the first business, either there was a business link, it was called. They've lost their funding now, but they used to do a lot of business support. And anyone that I spoke to at Business Link, they had the academic background, but they didn't have any clue about what it was like to actually run a business on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So they could give me frameworks and this is how you do a marketing strategy and blah, blah, blah. But they couldn't give me that experience piece. Then I would get the business owners who could give me the experience piece, but then couldn't give me frameworks. They couldn't say, well, this is how you should do it. It's like, this is how I did it. It might work for you, it might not. So where I felt that I could bridge that gap is I've got the academic background and I've got the experience. So I can relate to what you're going through, but I can also say, right, here's a framework that you can implement. This is how you implement it.
Yeah.
And it works.
And obviously we've done work in the past together, and recently too. But I think one thing that really hit home for me is probably talking 6 or 7 years ago now when we first started working together. And you said, what if, something happened to you?
Mhm.
Everything's in your head.
Yeah.
And you need those processes, and someone needs to come into the business. There you go. That's the process of how to do X, Y, and Z. And actually, it's not reliant on everyone coming to you every 2 minutes, then, which is how it was. And I'm glad to say it's not like that now.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
But I want to just understand, typically when people approach you and ask for help within their business, what what are the most common challenges that they're facing? And what are there any themes that you're like, I've heard this before?
Oh yeah, there's always themes. So number one, I'm burning out. Like
Yeah.
I'm working all
Yeah.
the hours that God sends. Even if they have staff, the staff don't know what they're doing. They're always asking me questions. I give them stuff to do. It's always staff. If people have any staff members, it's always the staff are not doing what they're supposed to do the way they're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
They're getting on my nerves.
Because the owner feels like the way I do it isn't exactly how they.
Yeah. But they don't have the systems and processes
Yeah.
for the staff to understand how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of pointing fingers, staff are not doing this. Or
Yeah.
if they don't have staff, I'm doing everything myself and I'm drowning in like
Mhm.
exhaustion and I'm burning out. So they're two really, really common themes. The third being I'm not making enough money. I've got this fantastic offer
Yep.
or these fantastic offers or this fantastic business, but I'm not getting enough work.
Mhm.
I'd say they're probably the three main things.
Yeah.
So it's burning out, staff not knowing what's going on or not performing properly, and not making enough money.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
really, not really fulfilling the potential that they've seen
Okay.
or hoped for the business.
And, obviously, without going into too much detail, can you tell us, as soon as you speak to someone then with those issues, what are the first things you're doing with them, and what are the steps that you take to then help them, I guess, switch the path they're on and start making the changes they need to make?
So I've changed this year in particular. I've kind of refined how I work actually, based on the experience of the last few years and kind of testing and trialing things. So
Yeah.
now we start everything with a Vision 20 session. So you did Vision 20 some years ago, and it's
Yeah.
really about identifying where are we trying to get to in the next
Yeah.
3 years,
Yeah.
and really getting razor sharp clarity on that. Because actually, what can often happen with business owners is they spend a lot of time doing busy work. So just doing stuff for doing stuff's sake, and there's no
Yeah.
specific direction that they're going in,
Yeah.
and there's no clarity on what you're trying to achieve. It's just we want to be a 7-figure business, or we want to be a multi 6-figure business, or we want to work with Google. But what is the overall big picture
Yeah.
of what you're trying to achieve? And once you've got that big picture, what is the roadmap that you need to follow to bring that big picture to fruition?
Yeah.
And I found over the years, I've done Vision 20 with like pretty much all of my clients at some point in some way. That can really be a massive eye opener. I've had people burst into tears more than once
Yeah.
going through that process, because they're like, actually, it feels like it's in reach.
Yeah.
And actually, it makes sense now. I understand I shouldn't be doing this thing over here
Mm.
because it's not going to get me there, or I need to do more of this thing here because it's going to get me to that.
Yeah. What I really, really liked about it, because we did do that, and actually I think we must have done it around 2018, 2019
Yeah.
probably, and we did still got it. We did Vision 2023, and I remember how much detail we spoke about it. And actually, what's been amazing is recently, I think it was probably last year, we shared it with the team, and actually on it, even as much as we wrote at the time, having 3 Teslas, one each, and now we all drive Teslas.
Yeah.
And which is just, it blows my mind. And I remember at the time you saying, describe the office that you want to me, because we were in a room probably half the size of this at the time, which was our big office. And we said, oh, we'd like a nicer office. And you just kept saying, tell me more. What does it look like? How many windows does it have? What else can you see in there? And actually now we're over 2 floors in a much bigger office, and all of those things on that vision came to life. So yeah, it's
Emotional.
yeah, it's amazing to see. And actually, when we shared it with the team on purpose to say, look, this is the power of having that vision and setting out what you want to do. And now we've done another one for the next 5 years, where we want to be and how we want it to look. And I would recommend it 100%.
Yeah, no,
100%.
thank you. And this is the beautiful thing. There's so many offices I've walked in.
Yeah.
I'm like, I remember when we mapped this out
Yeah.
in Vision 20, there's so many clients that I've seen winning awards, featured in this press, working with their dream clients, and we mapped it out
Yeah.
in Vision 20. So we start with that, and then at some point, whether that's immediate or a little bit further down the line, we then work on the systemization.
Mhm.
Because if you want to run a business that can scale, that can operate without you, what is important is you have the right systems and processes
Yeah.
to enable that to be the case. So the first thing we do is kind of brain extraction, we
Yeah.
started calling it, and it's taking all of the know-how out of the director or the founder's brain and documenting it. So putting it into flow charts, diagrams, standard operating procedures, getting all of the kind of templates done, or kind of guiding on which templates need to be done.
Yeah.
Because you can't complain that your staff are not doing the right things, or outsource support are not doing the right things, and you've not showed them how to do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, as business owners, you're so kind of flustered and overwhelmed with life
Yeah.
that you just assume that everybody can read your brain.
Yeah.
And you very like, I was saying it to a client the other day, because she was moaning that one of her staff kept doing this annoying thing. And I said, where did you write down and tell her, we don't do this, this is how we do it?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I haven't. When did you tell her? Have you actually told her? And she's like, no, it's obvious. No, it's obvious to you.
Yeah.
So what we kind of essentially do is create, and it sounds a little bit uncouth, but the idiot's guide to business.
Yeah.
I don't call it that. We put in the name of the company, operations manual. But
Yeah.
essentially that's what it is. It's an idiot's guide. Like, the idea being that anybody should be able to pick it up
Mhm.
and work out how to do specific processes
Yeah.
in the way that you as the founder want it to be done. Now, it's not foolproof, because some people are actually, I don't want to say idiots, but
Yeah.
they're just not going to get it.
Yeah.
And then now you've got something to say, well, it says here,
Let's fall back on.
do it this way, you didn't.
Yeah.
So now the problem is you. Whereas if you're just assuming, or guessing, you want them to assume how to do it,
Yeah.
you don't have any room for recourse, really. They've done it wrong, but you didn't tell them how to do it correctly.
Yeah.
So now it's your fault.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's written down
Yeah.
and they've been told, this is what we are
Being
following,
communicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
now it's their fault. So
Yeah.
now you know that it's not a you problem anymore. So that's really a key part of the process.
Yeah.
And then another key part, and this is really about this big boss CEO mode,
Yeah.
it's really around mindset. Now, I don't necessarily have to do this with, well, I do actually. Every client, we have to do some mindset work. So sometimes that mindset shift is, you don't have to be the be all and end all of the business.
Yeah.
So the shift needs to be a true CEO of your business. You need to empower your team to do the work. You need to build automations so that you don't have to be being a busy fool doing everything.
Mhm.
So that's an area that we often will work on. But also for some, not all, it's actually, you have everything within you to be able to step out and be the big boss of your business.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's this confidence thing, like, oh, actually, I can't do that. Oh, actually, I can't think that big, because what if it doesn't work? There's a lot of fear
Yeah.
that we sometimes have to overcome. So different clients require different things, or different levels of things. But mindset always features somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I think speaking from personal experience again, it took me a long time to actually let go of, well, I've built this, I've got these clients on board, and they know how I work, and I know exactly what time I'm going to call them, and blah blah blah. To then actually say, right, we've employed this person, and now they're going to do that. And that part was the hardest part for me. Do you have a timeline that you work with businesses with? So if someone's facing all these problems and they come to you and say, look, Daniela, I need your help, is there a 12-month period, a 24-month period? Just tell me how that side of it works.
Yeah, so that's been the development. So previously, I would work with clients and we'd do, okay, we're going to do a bit of vision here, we're going to do some system stuff, and
Yeah.
okay, if you need anything else, come back, or we're going to do a bit of strategy here.
Yeah.
And and I realized that what kept happening is the clients would do that little bit, they'd go off, and then they'd come back and say, oh, I need this bit now, and then they'd go off, and then and it was slowing down the process. So what I've done in 2025 specifically is said, actually, I want to work with a very small number of businesses over a 12-month period and do everything.
Yeah.
So we do vision, we do the systems and process mapping, we look at the strategy, we do the mindset work, we do coaching, we've got accountability, we do this kind of group elements as well. So kind of group accountability, we look at
Yeah.
confidence. So it's like the full holistic picture. So where I'd be offering individual bits and bobs,
Yeah.
I've collated it and said, actually, the clients that I've seen excel the most are the ones that have done everything. So
Yeah.
let me just offer everything in the first place. So I've got the 12-month program, which is called the Big Boss CEO Accelerator.
Yep.
But then also I've created a condensed version for those that maybe don't necessarily need as much personalized support.
Yep.
So we've created a group version, which is 12 weeks, which is the Big Boss Bootcamp. So
Okay.
it's kind of like fast paced. With the CEO Accelerator, it's me kind of doing it with you and for you.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Big Boss Bootcamp, it's like, this is how you do it. Get it done by
Oh,
next
do
week.
it. Yeah.
You come back, if you've done it right, next week you need to do this, and kind of fast tracking the process.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're the kind of two main offers that we've got this year. And then we've got the self-paced program,
Great.
which is the Visa Business Growth Program. So that's if you want to learn how to do it yourself, so
Yeah.
you can access the resources and go
Yeah.
on and get on with it yourself.
Yeah. And what do you see for the future? Obviously, there's two of you at the moment within the business. Is that how you want to keep it, or do you want to grow and bring other people in and for them to work, I guess, as you are currently working?
Yeah. So the growth ambition is that there's a train the trainer program. So I train people in the delivery of the Visa framework.
Okay.
Ideally, they'll pay me.
Yep.
So that become another revenue stream. And
Yep.
particularly business owners. I don't want it to be just people that want to be a coach. No,
Mhm.
I want to find business owners who've maybe sold their business or their business has failed.
Yep.
Actually,
So could you tell us what keeps you motivated every single day to get up, run the business, and keep growing as a business owner as well?
oh, there's many things. My children. For a start, I want to definitely make sure that they have the experiences and the life that I always wanted. Because growing up, we struggled for a little bit. And I recognize that through education, my parents were able to turn our situation around. And on the point is, every generation is supposed to do better than the last, right? So I've managed to get to a certain point. I want my children to go beyond where I've come. And in order for that to happen, I feel like I need to expose them to lots of different experiences. And in order to do that, I have to work. So that's the first thing. The second is my desire for freedom. I love doing what I do, but I also love sitting on a beach and sipping cocktails. Really.
Absolutely. Who doesn't?
So, do you be surprised? I've had some people say that they don't, but anyway, me, that's what I live for. So I work to make an impact. I want to make an impact. I want people to run hugely successful businesses. I want people to really have transformation in themselves in terms of confidence and really stepping out into big boss CEO mode. And I want them to say it was because of Daniella, like Daniella helped me do X, Y, and Z. But I also want to be able to be in a position where actually, if I don't want to work, I don't have to. If I want to just sit on the beach for a year and sip cocktails, then that's what I should be able to do.
Yeah.
So I have a very specific vision for my life, for my family life, and it includes spending a lot of the time
On a beach. I like it.
pretty much.
Where?
Well, so this is the thing, right? So it was Jamaica previously,
Yeah.
but then I went to Kenya the other day, and now it's Kenya.
Yeah.
If I'm honest,
Yeah.
it's completely changed my life.
Yeah.
I really feel like everybody needs to go to Kenya.
Yeah.
So much so that I'm actually planning a business retreat
Nice.
for 2026, where I want to take between 10 to 15 business owners
Nice.
to do business focused things, but in
Kenya.
Kenya, in several different beautiful resorts and villas and stuff.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Pencil me in for that one.
Oh, well, indeed. So yeah, that's really, and obviously there's a whole world to explore, right? So many different places I want to go, but I want to have a base.
Yeah.
I want to have a base in Jamaica and a base in Kenya.
Yeah.
Would be
Nice.
goals. Then
Sounds amazing.
I've achieved life. I don't need to do anything.
Yeah, sounds amazing. And just before we wrap up and go to our quickfire round, can you just give us an example? And again, it doesn't need to be fully detailed, but a case study of someone that's come to you with a lot of these issues we've been discussing, and actually they've transformed their business, and now they're in a completely different space as a boss. Can you just give us a real life example of that?
There's a few. I'm trying to think not to share the obvious ones that I always share. Okay, so there's a company that I'm working with at the moment, actually. The lady that runs it is called Vanessa. And actually, Vanessa was already in big boss mode, if I'm entirely honest. What the challenge she was having was that she had a lot of staff that weren't necessarily performing in the way she needed to. She was not able to step away from the business. Business was growing, but not at the rate that she wanted to. So one of the key things that I've worked on with Vanessa is this kind of process and systemization stuff.
Yeah.
So we've mapped all of the processes, created an operations manual for her, and we are now in the process of kind of refining the vision, refining the strategy
Yeah.
to help her scale, like to double her revenue.
Okay.
So she's already a multi-six-figure business. Yeah. But we're trying to double it.
Yeah.
And we're doing that through strategy, through innovation, and through accountability. And
Right.
just the difference of working, so we're working together throughout most of 2024, actually. And how she's talking, how she's moving, how she's operating is on a completely different level to what she was doing before. And she was already on
Yeah.
a pretty high level. And it's beautiful to see because she's like, actually, this was really causing a problem in terms of how the business was running. This was a bottleneck. This was something I
Yeah.
was having to check all the time. It was getting on her nerves. I mean, actually, now that problem doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So she can focus on, okay, how do we level up the money? Because the back end is coordinated.
Yeah.
There was another client that I was working with, also a social enterprise, a gentleman called Malachi. And again, a lot of it is around his system stuff,
Yeah.
systems and a bit of kind of mindset work. But we just built some dashboards for him that helped him with his onboarding process for his clients.
Yeah.
And also we looked at a lead magnet, so creating something that he can offer for free, that then gets people into his sales pipeline. And he's already started the process and starting to see some returns on that.
Yeah.
So, and that's again had a bit of a shift on his mindset that actually I don't have to be sitting here all the time calling everyone.
Yeah.
I can have an automated system that is going to bring sales in. One of my favorites, I can't say there's many favorites, but Taran. So Taran ran a company called Taran 3D, and when he came to me, he was like pulling his hair out.
Yeah.
Actually, he was saying, I don't want to do this business anymore. This is the last ditch attempt.
Yeah.
And we did everything. So we did vision, we did strategy, we did the work around systemization, and it really just transformed his whole way of being. I saw him, and I tell this story a lot. After we'd finished the work, I saw him a couple of months later at an event,
Yeah.
and I was with my husband, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you, like thank you so much. Because of you, I was able to go on holiday the other day." And my wife was like, "How come you're not working?" And it's like, I don't need to, because everything is running
Yeah.
the way it's supposed to run.
Yeah.
And as a consequence of that, he recognized that actually I don't want to run the business anymore.
Yeah.
And everything was in place. So he merged with another company.
Right.
So now he has a role within that company and has much more time on his hands to do the things
Yeah.
that he genuinely enjoys. Because actually sometimes doing the work is what people enjoy, not managing the whole entire
Yeah.
business. So
Yeah.
as much as it's not oh my gosh, he sold the business for 8 figures or something,
Yeah.
he's now doing what he enjoys doing, and the business has been able to become part of another business and continue running.
Amazing.
And obviously you guys.
Yeah, of course, us, and as I've alluded to in this, you've helped us massively, from when we were, I'm still fairly young, I'm not going to call myself old, but when we were younger
Yeah.
gentlemen, and actually we'd never ran a business before, and we would just go in with it, and whatever was in our brains is what we were doing every day. And I think the initial hunger to succeed is what really drove us. But then we absolutely needed to put those processes in place to then grow and go from 3 of us to now 25 of us within the business, which we've done, and still a long way to go. So exciting times ahead. For people listening then that actually think, I run a business, things aren't quite right, I know they're not quite right, I'm going to get in touch with Daniella. How do they get in touch with you?
So you can visit my website, bethebossintl.com, and you can fill out, there's a contact form on there. You can email me, which is daniella@bethebossintl.com. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and Instagram, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Daniella Genas, and on Instagram at bethebossintl.
Perfect.
I'd say Instagram is probably the quickest way to get me, to be honest.
Yes. Okay, great. And just before we finish, I've got 10 quick fire questions for you. Okay. So I'm just going to whiz through these. So number 1, coffee or tea?
Neither.
No hot drinks. Like your brother.
Chocolate. I like hot chocolate.
Do you? I don't think he even likes that.
Yeah, coffee and tea is not my thing at all.
What's your go-to then?
Water. Juice. I like juice. I'm trying to cut down on the juice, so it's not good for you too. But yeah, I'm not really a hot drinks.
Okay, interesting. Early bird or night owl?
After not having much sleep for the last 18 months, I'm not sure which one. I'd say night owl. I used to be an early bird, but I think Because my
It's
sleep
changed.
is so interrupted. It's easier for me to stay up sometimes than to get up early.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Favorite quote that you live by?
Can I use my own?
Oh, please do.
Think big, take action, keep pushing.
Nice. Nice. We've just touched upon this one as well, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Dream vacation destination?
Oh yeah, Kenya.
Kenya,
Kenya.
without a doubt. One thing that you cannot live without?
My family.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
I don't
Love
think I
it.
could live without them.
Sweet or savory snacks?
Sweet, every
Sweet all
time. I've
day.
got a really sweet tooth. It's a problem.
Yeah. Stick with that ice cream.
Literally.
Who or what is the biggest inspiration in your life right now?
Oh, my children.
Yeah.
And my children. Mhm.
Nice. The last book you read or the last show that you binged?
Oh, the last book I read was it's called The Magic of Thinking Big.
Okay.
I don't remember the author though. but
Okay.
It's a very good book.
Google it. Magic of
Yeah,
Thinking
Magic
Big.
of Thinking Big. Also, I want to give an honorable shout out to how to start a cult or how to build a cult.
Okay.
Which whenever I say it to people, they're like, it
Yeah.
sounds crazy. But I've had a general interest in cults for a little while because I just find it a bit mad.
Yeah.
Like, how do people end up in these situations?
Yeah.
And watching a show the other day, I was like, why has somebody not worked out how to harness the good parts of the cult leaders for business? Because
Yeah.
actually, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Bringing people together and getting them to buy into what
Yeah.
you're selling, essentially. So I Googled it and there was a book and I read it and it was great.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, again, I don't remember the author, but it's
Yeah.
a good book.
Okay, cool. Good recommendation. Can you give us your go-to productivity hack?
Oh, yeah. Time blocking. Time blocking for the win. So every day, every week, I write down all the things that I need to do.
Yeah.
And then I block it into blocks of time.
Yeah.
Obviously give more time to things that have more priority and put them higher up the list.
Yeah.
And less time for the things that don't,
Yeah.
and stick to those time blocks. I use Alexa at home. So for example, on an average day, I'll then speak the time block into Alexa. So
Right.
Alexa, set a timer for 9:30. The timer is for start your finance hour.
Right.
Alexa, 10:30, set a timer for do client work.
Right.
And then throughout the day, the Alexa will go off to alert me to the fact that it's time
Oh,
to move
wow.
on to the
I
next.
didn't even know you could do that with Alexa. I just come in and say, play the radio.
No, Alexa is like my personal assistant in the house.
Oh,
But yeah, so I use Trello a lot. So I'll put my to-do list in Trello.
yeah.
And I would also put the times that I'm working on. But then
Yeah.
once I get into the work, obviously, I don't always go back.
Yeah.
So then Alexa
Okay.
reminds me. And
Amazing.
that helps me get through a lot of things throughout
yeah.
the day.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you. And finally, one thing on your bucket list.
Ooh. Well, at the moment, it's organizing my retreat in Kenya. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like once I've done that, I would have.
Yeah.
I'm happy to end everything and not move forward.
Yeah.
A joke. But yeah, I think that's a massive one.
Yeah.
Also going to Japan.
Okay.
I feel like I don't want to die and not go to Japan.
Yeah. I'd love to see Japan as well. Never been.
Yeah, it looks like an amazing random
Okay.
place. So.
Amazing. Well, look, that brings us to an end. Thank you so much for sharing, your advice, your experiences and everything else. I'm sure it'll be really, really useful for everyone listening. And we'll put your contact details below in the description so people can contact you. And thanks so much.
Thank you. Enjoyed that.